I'm Shireen Pathak. I'm a reporter at Advertising Age, and we have a really great panel today. It's actually an interesting time to talk about Citi Bike because this month is actually the first birthday of Citi Bike. A little bit hard to believe because, at least for me, it feels like I've been seeing those bikes all over New York for a very long time. We're going to start off today with Alyssa and Jim spending a little bit of time just walking us through how the initiative started, the initial reception, and finally coming to sort of where it is right now. And then we'll have time for questions, panel discussion, and then we'll throw it open to you guys. So I'll hand it over to Jim and Alyssa.
Hi, great, thank you, and welcome everyone. I hope that you saw the Citi Bikes parked up on 37th Street as you walk down here. What I wanted to do is just spend about 5-10 minutes talking about what is this program for those who are not that familiar with it, how we got involved, and we'll talk about the success that we've seen. And also, it hasn't been the easiest thing for us to help launch as we're heading into our year anniversary. So Citi Bike started, actually the conversations for Citi Bike started about 2 years ago, and where the city came to Citi, so New York City came to Citi asking us if we'd be interested in sponsoring this program. And this video is showing a nice little clip of the program itself. But at the time, the mayor really wanted to bring a bike sharing program to Manhattan, but needed a sponsor to do it. And there were zero taxpayer dollars that were going to be associated with it. And we at Citi evaluated the opportunity to say, like, is this something we want to get involved in? And spent a long time going through that and building out that business case. But when we looked at it, we said, is it aligned with what we want to stand for as a brand? And I think when you get involved in any sort of activity beyond just plain advertising, because this is more than just an advertising opportunity, you want to make sure that the sponsorship aligns with your brand values. And this one was bringing, for the first time in over 100 years, a new form of transportation to Manhattan, was pretty innovative. And Citi has been about bringing progress to cities, to customers for 200 years. So it aligned very nicely. So it launched about a year ago. The May 27th is when we launched it. And right now there are about 6,000 bikes, 330 stations throughout the city. And obviously we have bikes that are branded Citi, and we were able to manage all of the actual branding of the bikes and the creativity of the bikes. And it also represented an advertising opportunity for us.
So in May of 2012, Mayor Bloomberg announced the program with the sponsorship of Citi at City Hall. It's a big deal. And then finally, the bikes hit the streets in May of 2013. From an advertising perspective, we were really excited. This gave us 6,000 moving billboards to put all over the city. Our branding, we designed the bikes, we designed the graphics, and really took into consideration how it was going to appear against the New York City landscape. In addition to the bikes, over 330 stations located around the city, which give us a great out-of-home presence, right? So at the launch, we really wanted to make everything feel very local, very about the neighborhoods these stations were in. So all of the lines had a really hyper-local feel to them. We needed to unlock the entire bike system. This was new mode of transportation, so the app that we developed was going to be key. You could quickly get in, find a station that has a bike or a spot for you, get directions anywhere in the city, and we also partnered with the New York Times to add some content, right? Find a restaurant, find a coffee shop to go to on your trip. Wasn't easy getting there. There was about a year from when it was announced to the launch. We had a Canadian transit strike that delayed the parts getting to the manufacturer, so we had no bikes to put out there. And then, of course, Sandy, once we did have bikes, kind of put a bunch of them underwater. We had to rebuild a lot of them, so wasn't easy getting there. But I don't know if that was the worst part. I think the press leading up to the launch, the program was just bashed. It was really, the temperature in the press was pretty negative. There was a lot of hyperbole here, an all-powerful lobby. Not sure if that's true or not, but and then of course there was some name calling, which that's fine. We can deal with that. But everything changed when people really got on the bikes and started riding and started seeing the experience that people were having.
Yeah, so I would say that within the first week to a month, once the bikes were actually out and people were enjoying them, the whole conversation changed to one of from negative to completely positive. Citi Bike started becoming part of pop culture, and when you're showing up in Us Weekly of stars they're just like us, and you see Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't think he could ever be seen not on a Citi Bike. It was really, and that's Brooke Shields at the bottom left, where she dressed up as a Citi Bike for Halloween for the parade downtown. But it wasn't just the stars; it was that people were really starting to embrace the program very quickly. And in the first month, when we set up this program, we had some key KPIs. We wanted to make sure that we were getting people riding the bike. So we set a goal for us to have each bike ridden 2.5 times per bike. On the highest days of the season, we were at 7.5 rides per bike, which is pretty phenomenal. We wanted to make sure that we were getting the impressions as well, so we had media value that we associated with. And then the third thing that we wanted to make sure is that we were changing the perception of the Citi brand, and that this type of program was more than just an advertising opportunity, it was bringing utility to New Yorkers, so we wanted to see more people taking that value away from it.
Hey!
Wait a minute.
Come on, let's go.
Hey, hold it. Easy. Careful.
It's a town bike.
Yeah.
What is it? Citi Bike?
That's one of those special bikes.
Late! Whoa!
So a lot of things were happening that we actually didn't have in place. So Bruce Willis riding a Citi Bike onto the David Letterman show. The New Yorker within the first week had Citi Bike on the cover, which to us as New Yorkers felt like we had really struck a nerve and a chord with folks. Since the program has launched, there have been almost 8 million rides taken and 14 million miles, which is the equivalent of I think like 13 rides to the moon and back. So people are really taking advantage of the program and really enjoying it. Burned over 560 million calories, so we're keeping New Yorkers in shape. Really excited about that. Also reducing carbon emissions. This was a big part of why the mayor wanted to bring this program to the city and why Citi got involved in it, of really helping to support sustainability in the city. So really reducing carbon emissions, which is the equivalent of almost 800,000 gallons of gas. And while we did say that there was a brand perception, you do want to start changing the way that people are behaving. And we saw this tweet last year in July where someone wrote that as a Citi Bike rider that it only took them 25 Citi Bike rides where they accidentally walked into a Citi ATM instead of Chase, which was obviously where they banked, showing that top of mind branding is really powerful. So we enjoyed this, but really enjoyed the way that the New Yorkers have embraced the program.
Great, thank you so much. One of the questions I actually have for Rob, you've talked a lot, Alyssa and Jim, about sort of this being more than just, it's not just an advertising campaign, but it's also not just a brand just being generous. What is the difference? From the agency perspective, what is the difference? What is the difference between just being a sponsorship and just a charity effort or a well-meaning effort to actually being brand generosity?
Yeah, I think brands that I admire have a strong point of view and then they activate it. So I think Coke has done a great job of that over the last couple of years. If their point of view is sharing happiness, then the India-Pakistan machines and things of that nature are great activations of a point of view. So I think the thing that I'm most excited about this is, Citi has a point of view, which is an enabler, catalyst of progress, right? So around the world, they had done everything from sponsoring the Panama Canal to the Union Army, which is something very odd, NASA, transatlantic cable, and as a New York City bank, they wanted to bring progress in New York City. So for me, I think the thing that's great about it is it's taking a brand point of view and truly activating it in an authentic way. I think sometimes sponsorships can be forced, or they feel like it's just, you just bought a package. It has nothing to do with your brand. And I think this is the case where it really does. And so I think that's the thing that makes it special.
Also, what was, the point of view of the brand? When you started this, sort of what were the discussions that went into this? Why Citi?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is, I don't think it's much of a surprise that the financial industry, not the most beloved. And Citi, actually, of all of New York banks, was probably was the bottom of the barrel of the top 6. And we've been working really hard over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years to win back the hearts and minds of consumers. And we believe that it's about showing, not telling. And for New York, this is our hometown, and it was really important that we win back New York. And we needed to show them, show New Yorkers that we are part of New York. What could we do that was closely linked to, as Rob said, the catalyst and enabler of progress? What does that mean? And it means a lot of things. It means, you being able to get money out of your ATM 24 hours. It means being able to deposit a check from home. It means, financing the, transatlantic cable. It means bringing new innovations to New York. And this, for us, we thought, wow, this could be pretty dramatic. And, it's like, we have a fantastic Metro North system here, and our MTA is an efficient subway system, but we all know getting across town, not so easy. And we thought that bringing a Bike Share program was going to change the lives of folks. And it was really so closely aligned to what we believe in. And so it was, it wasn't an easy sell, but it was a lot easier from a rationale perspective, once we kind of did the business case for it internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I see some of the things New Yorkers say about it, New Yorkers either love something or they hate something.
Mm-hmm.
And Citi Bike feels to me like a very, very New York program, even though there are bike sharing programs around the world. Maybe Jim, what are the challenges that specifically something like New York? Other than you can have something as great as the Dave Letterman show, but you can also have the name calling.
Yeah, I think New Yorkers as a group, they don't react well to change, right? And a lot of big cities don't. They're set in their ways. There's a lot of heart for the way things have been done. And I think we saw that. It was seen with the smoking ban. It was seen anytime you try to do some really great change, people, they just react viscerally. It's a knee-jerk reaction to just resist it. And I think that's what we're up against. And the press caught wind of it. They jumped on that bandwagon. But it was really about demonstrating. It's the showing, not the telling. And I think we kind of knew we were going to be in for a fight. We wanted to make sure that everything we put out there from the start wasn't about the bank. It was always about the program. It was about the city. It was about the riders who were going to ultimately get on those bikes. So when we looked at the out-of-home that we put in each of those little neighborhoods, we either showed them how great the experience could be, or we broke down what a bike ride could be in that particular neighborhood. So it was really about celebrating the bike, not the bank. And I think that was something we always tried to keep in mind. It's to get people riding, it's to get people excited about it. And I think that really helped people drop their guard. It wasn't just about a Citibank thing.
So then, I guess the logical question from that is, does this kind of thing even sell? At the end of the day, you are a business. This is a very well-intentioned marketing effort, but it is a marketing effort. Do those things have to be mutually exclusive? I think people assume that you're going to give, then you can't be selling. But if you're going to be selling, then you can't be giving. But I think this is proof that that's not the case.
No, I think if it's authentically connected to, and I think we went into this saying, this is not about driving more credit cards, applications or new deposits. I was very clear, this was a brand play. And I think most of us here would all agree, you're not going to do business with companies that you don't connect with. in some sort of emotional way. That's just the way human beings react. And so we wanted to make sure that we were connecting with your hearts so that eventually it would get to your heads. And I really believe that consumers behave and they react from their hearts. They rationalize things with their brains. And when we set out saying we wanted to increase our brand perception, we saw our brand preference goals go up 25%. We saw, willingness to do business with Citi go up 41% within the first 3 months. On top of that, we did look at our business in New York, and we did see a directional increase of about 15% on both card apps and deposits, but that wasn't what we set as our primary goal. And I think that as a marketer, you have to realize it's not always going to be about the hard sell. And we were very careful of making sure that we were respecting that, but knew that, we have 330 stations. I am in business to help move our products and services and get people to take our cards. Even the ads that you see today, we wanted to make sure if we were going to talk about our thank you rewards card, where you get 2 times the points on dining and entertainment, it wasn't just what you would see normally, in national media. We tailored it to New York still. And so I think, being respectful of that helped to connect with consumers in a way that just our general advertising hasn't been, wouldn't have been able to.
How does this change how you guys work from the agency perspective? This is a completely new type of campaign. It's a new type of initiative that you guys are working with. Does it change how you guys staff? Does it change how you guys think? Were there things that you suddenly sort of looked at in the structure and the staffing, the talent to work with this?
Yeah, I think obviously it tested kind of what the definition of a creative department was. We started out, obviously there were guys, even just in the general advertising, the out-of-home, we didn't write like 4 boards. We wrote like per neighborhood. So we wrote at one point we must have looked at, Jim, like 300 lines.
Yeah.
But we had to have a tech team that worked almost, I would say, 6 months, and UX team built within the group, building the app. And the app itself had to do a lot of things. It had to be incredibly functional and experiential. Like I ride, and when I go to the elevator, I am quickly looking at that app to see, with that droplet, if there are bikes near me. When I step out the door, it has to work so quickly. So we had a great UX team, a great tech team. We did street activation. We did the Union Square initiative. We had a design department. Our design department did the graphics for the bike. So it kind of tests what you have within your creative department and how broad you go and how far you go. Because it went everything from PR to graphics to app to tech development to communications to street activation.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the street activations? Actually, I think those were sort of one of the more interesting parts of.
Yeah. It was really neat. So we knew there was that negative reaction in the beginning. We knew that we needed to get people to start riding the bike. So right before the launch, we had a Union Square activation where we set up basically a test drive, right? You could come, you could try the bikes out, you could learn safety tips, you could learn New York City riding rules, which are the same as driving rules, basically. But we made it a fun day, we made it a fun experience, and we gave out helmets. We were very committed to safety. We wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that was a priority, and you get them on the bikes, you get them to feel it, you get them to start attaching that experience to Citi. So it really started with that event.
Cool. One of the things is that Citibank doesn't operate the program, but I think intrinsically in your minds.
Although many people think I do.
Right, although a lot of people
including my
think you're the
family.
one sort of fixing the bikes. But but intrinsically in your minds, if something goes wrong, your mind goes, oh, Citibank, it's their fault. And there are lots of stories in the press, even more recently, just about things not working, companies maybe not having enough money to continue having the program. Maybe prices might go up, whatever it is. this is, again, not something that you guys really can control, but it almost feels like you have to respond to this. How do you respond to this without saying, hey, it's not my problem?
Yeah, no, I mean, Citi is not a company that says, hey, it's not my problem, ever. But I think that, the customer experience, and not to sound cliche, but it is so important to our business, just overall. It is, and everything has to work. It has to be seamless. And we knew getting involved in a program like this with our brand name all over it, that, all joking aside, while people don't think that people think we operate the program, they really do sometimes, and not just at cocktail parties. But we knew that it came with, there was risk and reward that would come with that. And so even when we were evaluating it, we had to think about what happened if someone got hit by a car. And have a PR plan, and just a crisis management plan, around that of the if-then. Obviously, when if the program's not working well, or if something isn't as smooth as we want it to be, it does concern us. But we walk a very fine line. We don't operate the program. Clearly, our brand is so associated with it that we want to be able to share any concerns that we may have with the operators and with the city, and we have a very close relationship. I think everyone wants it to be a wonderful experience for consumers, because everyone wins if it is. So we have to walk that fine line of what influence we have versus what we don't. And it's, fortunately, we're listened to, because people, the folks that are running the program want it to be a success and want Citi, where it's a 6-year deal, when we spent about $41 million over those 6 years. So, we can't say I don't operate it, but at the same time, we don't operate it. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
What about other brands? I mean, is this something that you're seeing other brands kind of learn from, or is this something still so different that other brands can't really get to it? I mean, what is your experience just looking out at the industry in general?
Well, it's funny. On some of our brands, we've tried to bring experiences or utility to our consumers, right? So, for instance, we have Charmin, and we brought out the Sit or Squat app, which shows you the closest public restroom and whether you're going to need to sit or squat when you get there. But and that's a great experience and utility that we gave our Charmin customers. But I think the thing that we've discovered with this is it's a pretty unique and special combination of things that you suddenly have. You have great utility, and I do think we mix up utility and experience all the time, but great utility. I've ridden from our office at 52nd Street across town to Citi, to Lex, to have a meeting, and I could never have gotten there in 10 minutes, which I did on the bike, right? Traffic is so bad going across town, and there's no subway, so great utility, amazing experience if you're riding through Soho on a Friday night or whatever. So amazing utility experience, but also branding. When we do that Sit or Squat app, there's no branding to the outside world, only to the people who go to the iTunes store. But here we have 6,000 billboards that are giving incredible experiences and rewarding experiences to people. And I think that is the thing that's kind of like, I would call the marketing holy grail. And I don't think we realized it when we started to work on it, that it would be that. And I think it's been incredibly special. And I keep thinking, how would we ever replicate that for other brands? Because it's really hard to have something that's an experience, but also ubiquitous branding. And that's what's kind of special.
Yeah, absolutely. What about just reactions? I mean, I love that reaction about walking into a Citi ATM by accident. What were some of the other sort of just the most positive things? We spent a lot of time talking about the negatives, so let's talk about that. But
well, if you follow Twitter, if you look on Tumblr, I think the most amazing thing to me, and I'll share some of my fun little things that I've seen of people getting married and taking photos on a Citi Bike, which I think is fun. Is just the way that people have made it their own. And so, when people ask me like, oh my God, look at all the social media that you've gotten, and when you put a dollar amount to it, is like in the millions of dollars. None of that we actually did. And I think that for us, if we had tried to do that, it would have failed famously, versus letting people do the good and the bad, like let people own it. And for a bank, pretty risk averse, and it's But it's, we had to let people do that and have fun with it and be creative with it. So I always find just the stories that people have. I mean, the cast of Kinky Boots, the way that they get it, so they get docked if they arrive late for their show every day. So the entire cast, including Cyndi Lauper, takes Citi Bike there every day because they know how much time it will take to get from their apartment to the theater. There are some wacky stories where someone took a Citi Bike on a subway, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Meta. I don't know.
There are people who didn't understand that there was a time limit associated with it and took them into their apartment to save for the next day.
There was that shot on the fire escape.
Fire escape.
Yeah,
Citi Bike.
yeah, not a good idea. There is a 45-minute limit. You'll get charged overtime. You probably have other fun stories.
I mean, I get anxious every time I see a Citi Bike at a park for too long or down at the promenade. I'm like, you should get that back. Yeah, I think you're right, though. It's the content that was generated. It's the participation. It's really, it's the way they just jumped on a brand and rode it around town. To me, it was just amazing. And how much they did it, how quickly. There was very little speed to just, let's try it out. It was, nope, let's ride. It was pretty amazing.
It's funny because I feel like any other brand would have jumped on that so quick. Like, Cyndi Lauper, let's get her into an ad and let's let's take a picture of her and then suddenly splash it all over every single bus shelter in Manhattan. And I feel like you guys didn't, and that actually makes it even more special. It's kind of so organic. And I mean, any plans to get Cyndi Lauper in an ad?
No plans to get Cyndi Lauper in an ad. It's interesting. I had a meeting with the head of PR for Zac Posen, the designer, and we were chatting about something, and she said, that every star, it's like their thing to get photographed on a Citi Bike. And so they're always dressed like as cool as they could be, so that, because it's like a status symbol. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But no, I think things are happening organically, and you just got to let them happen. Yep. I think when we talk about what is our next activation, because this is a 6-year deal, like you can't just like one and done. You just like, how are you going to keep it fresh? It really has to go back to our brand values and what the program is about. And I think it's great that Cyndi Lauper and Justin Timberlake or whoever else is on them. That's fabulous. But I think that what am I doing for New York, the greater New Yorkers and not just the movie stars. Yeah. And so that's going to be our next thing that we're working on.
Yeah. What about internally, both at the agency and at Citi? I mean, were there naysayers? Were there people who said, "Oh, it's not going to work"? Were there people who brought up things that you just never thought of? I mean, what was the reaction internally as fragmented and sort of evolving as it was externally?
I don't think so. I think it was, we were all thrilled. Like for us, there's a lot of cyclists in Publicis Capitol Thaler. This is the convergence of offline, the real world and digital, and that's just something that we all have so much passion for. And then, of course, we love the brand. We've been working on it for a long time, so we're all really invested in it. And for us, for all these things to be hitting in our hometown, this opportunity does not come along once, we gave it everything we had. We probably overextended. We went full at it. We were so ambitious.
Overextended. Rob uses this as retention.
Yeah. No, I would say honestly, I think the agency was completely behind it and excited. I mean, I never forget the design team had the bike on the 11th floor outside my office with every decal and logo, and everyone was walking by and looking at it. Probably 6 months before, close to a year before. I do think when it did launch, there was a little bit of trepidation, because I'll never forget, we had a celebratory ride, which was a disaster. So we're all going to go out with our clients and ride downtown to a bar and have drinks and what have you. But it was during that first week where there were issues with the day passes, and none of us had gotten our key fobs yet. And I literally had to go to 7 stations to get a bike. So that first week, I think, and there was some bad press about the stations in that first week, and they were having some issues. Alta was getting through that. So I think the first week or so, we were a little nervous. And the press was so bad. I mean, it was unbelievable. That woman from the Wall Street Journal, who was a psychopath, it was just insane. So, but I think it quickly took off, which was great.
Yeah. So what's next? You know, like you said, it's a 6-year deal. You can't. What are we going to see coming up? Can you tell us a little bit?
I can't. We're working on something for the fall. As I said, you know, we want to make sure that, one, we're not overextending ourselves with how we activate it, because, you know, when Jim talks and Rob talks about like people being excited to work on it, that is the understatement. Like, it is, people, it's like infectious. And I will say, at Citi, there were some folks that were a little more hesitant about it, and you know, I was all but one person who says, you know what, you were right. I was not for this, and look what it turned out to be. Everyone else, it's as if it was their idea from the get-go, which I love, you know, because there were like 5 of us who were like dealing with this from the beginning, trying to convince everyone, like meeting after meeting after meeting. But I think it's how are we going to activate it, and how are we going to, you know, the program that we're looking to launch in the fall is, you know, closely connected with ways in which we're giving back, ways in which we can get get the riders to give back, and do something that, you know, really is going to make a difference in the world. I think as marketers, consumers, more and more, they want to know what you're about. They want to know what you believe in. They want to see what you're doing, especially banks, where it's, you know, we're not just collecting your money, that we're here to serve a purpose, and consumers expect that of all the companies that they do business with. So we want to make sure that we're doing that, and doing it in a very authentic way. So I would say stay tuned, and come this fall, we'll get that program launched. I mean, obviously the other question that we get asked is, oh, so you're going to do bike share programs all over the country? No. But I think it's, you know, we are in top markets, and when I get asked that question, it's like, oh, let's do bike share in Los Angeles, let's do it here, it's like, what made it work here was that the need for a transportation system was serving the need of New York. If we're going to do something, you know, similar in another city, I would want to make sure that it's connected to what are the needs and how are we connected to it. So it's not just a simple answer of doing bike share programs. They may work in other cities for sure, but New York was pretty unique in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, you know, nobody can top New Yorker reactions. So.
No, New Yorker reactions
We're
are
good at it.
fantastic. We love New York.
I think we have a few minutes for questions. If anyone has any. Yeah, please. I think there's a mic somewhere, or yes, there's a mic.
Did you have any influence over the location of the stations? And was it important that they were near your branches?
We worked with the city. I mean, they wanted to see where our branches were, but they were really in charge of the station locations. And if you were here looking at some of the early feedback from some of the either restaurant owners throwing their bodies in the middle of the street, protesting the racks being in front of their restaurants, you know, that was the city. I think one of the wonderful things now is, like, flash forward, if you go onto any of the real estate websites, they actually include as a selling proposition of where you want to live, where the bike stations are. So, like, complete 180. But, you know, they definitely did ask us, you know, show us your branch footprint and we'll try to, you know, do our best. But it really was for the Department of Transportation to determine those locations.
Was it part of your decision making? Was it important to you guys?
Well, knowing that there was going to be, you know, it's at 6,000 bikes now, and the goal is to grow to 10,000. We were pretty confident that it would be near our branches, so yeah.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. Wake up. Oh, okay.
You talked about the relationship with the New York Times. Was that important to driving initial usage of the bikes, like of the system?
No. What we wanted to do, and that was an integration of content into the app. Obviously, we wanted to get butts in seats. That was one of our goals. That was how can we make how can we make that app experience better?
Right.
So you might want to talk a little bit about that.
It was really showing the balance of utility and experience. So our tagline for the launch was "Unlock a bike, unlock New York." So the app itself was meant to really help you unlock the bike system. And I think we wanted to include something that would help you unlock a New York experience, right? So we showed those restaurants and those cafes that are around those stations and help you get there. So really just giving both halves of what we believe is the goal of Citi Bike.
Great.
So I don't know who would answer this question, but were there other people other than Citi Bike that were looking at putting their names on the bikes, and were you aware of that? What was the process for this? Who were you approached by, and
So we were approached by the city. So the mayor's office approached Citi. I don't know if they approached other New York-based companies, but the mayor's office, Mayor Bloomberg's office, came to Citibank and asked us if we wanted to be a part of this, because it was the only way that he was going to be able to bring this program to New York was to get a sponsor to do it. MasterCard also joined in, and they are a sponsor as well, not the title sponsor, but a sponsor as well of the program. Has anyone been on a Citi Bike? Good.
Great.
Good. Spring is sprung.
Best way to get here is the subway. All right. Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much to our wonderful panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.